Hey, Joey Star here. Welcome to another episode of Star Quality Kitchen. Today I'll be making one of my personal favorites, vanilla latte cookies. The reason why I'm making these is because I've been invited to a Thanksgiving dinner with my friends over to the next county, and I thought it'd be nice to bake something for them to show my appreciation. The reason why I like these cookies so much, besides that they're booming with delicious flavor, is that they're low carb, low calorie, especially for cookies, and they're really easy to make. First, before you do anything, you should preheat your oven. Then go get your ingredients because preheating the oven takes time. For this particular recipe, you'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now you want to get out the ingredients that you're going to need. This recipe is going to call for 1.5 cups of blanched almond flour, half a cup of unsalted butter, or in this case, a stickle of unsalted butter, a third cup of erythritol, 2 large eggs, 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon of your favorite instant coffee grounds. I just happen to like Folgers Classic Roast. 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of kosher salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 17 drops of liquid stevia. I'll be sure to drop the ingredient lists and the basic recipe into the description below, and I'll also provide you with some links to buy some of the stuff online. All right, you'll need your measuring cups and spoons. 1 cup, half a cup, third of a cup. You'll need a tablespoon, or if you had a mishap with your tablespoon like I did, you can just utilize a half tablespoon and just double up on the number of scoops you put into there. Gonna need a teaspoon, a half teaspoon, a 1/4 teaspoon, a couple of mixing bowls, or anything you have if you need to improvise. You're gonna need this guy so that you can beat some eggs. Believe it or not, an empty water bottle. And now you're saying, why do you need an empty water bottle? You'll see when I get to it. Be patient, my young Padawan. A cookie sheet or a wide, flat baking pan like I have. 2 smaller bowls. And depending how much you're gonna make, if you're making 1 batch, 1 cooling rack should be enough. I'm actually gonna make 2 batches, so I have 2 cooling racks. It's actually been about 3 or 4 years since I've made these cookies. And I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I have all this memorized, because I don't. So for myself, I have my old Kindle that just happened to have this recipe on here. And I'm going to relearn how to make this and teach you at the same time. How you like them apples? Or rather, how you like those cookies? Let's start, shall we? In my mixing bowl. So in my mixing bowl, I'm going to combine 1.5 level cups of my blanched almond flour. 1 tablespoon. Look at those crystals. In addition to the tablespoon, you also want a teaspoon of your instant ground coffee, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 teaspoon of your favorite no-name brand cinnamon. I got some inside jokes today. So now that those ingredients in the bowl, I'm gonna combine them. Gonna gently stir it into my bowl here. Now, since all this stuff is powdery, you kind of want to be careful not to mix it too rapidly, because there's nothing worse than getting half of your powdered ingredients all over your kitchen counter as opposed to inside your mixing bowl. Well, I'm glad I picked this large bowl, because I almost went with a smaller one thinking, no, I don't need one that big. Look at this. Sucker's full. It's a good thing I'm going gently, huh? Going gently into that good night. That's combined. It's kind of neat. Kind of looks like cookie dough, right? Hey, it is cookie dough. So now this next step is you'll want to put in either separate containers or separate bowls your egg whites and egg yolks. That's why you need 2. 1 for the whites, 1 for the yolks. So first, I'm going to carefully pop my 2 large eggs into these bowls here, into 1 bowl. I've never really mastered that one-handed egg cracking technique that other cooks, actual cooks, make look so easy, but practice makes better. All right, now, and I actually managed to get it in there without breaking the yolk. Although the one yolk looks a little sad, but it's not broken, it's just a little bleh. It's all right, perhaps this will make it happy. One of the few moments you're waiting for, why? do I need an empty water bottle? Because that's how I'm going to pull the yolks out while leaving the whites behind. Source material, destination. All right, I'm going to squeeze the bottle a little bit like this, so I'm pushing some of the air out. And then I'm going to stick this part, I'm going to make contact with the yolk gently, and then release the bottle so that, whoop, it sucks that yolk right into here. See it? Do you see it? Hopefully it shows up on camera. Then I can go to the other bowl and just give it a gentle squeeze to squeeze it back out. Now there's my egg yolk all by itself in there. It's lonely. So I'm gonna get its brother over here to join it. Okay, so for better or for worse, egg yolks, egg whites. In another mixing bowl, you'll want to add your unsalted butter. Happen to have half a cup right here. Oh, such buttery goodness. And what you want to do with this butter is you'll want to beat it well. So I start off by kind of mashing it a bit into the bowl here. Thankfully this butter's soft already. So once that butter is well beaten, you want to add your erythritol. The thing about erythritol these days is that, in my experience, I find that every time I go to buy it, they don't have the same one available that they had on previous versions. Every single time I had to buy erythritol, it's a completely different brand, completely different consistency. In this particular case, I have the powdered monk fruit sweetener. There's not much to tell by the smell here, but we'll see how this comes out. Hopefully it comes out as good as the last time I made this. Last time I made this, it came out awesome, badass even. We're gonna need a third cup of that. So you add that to your beaten butter. And what you want to do is you want to continue the beat down that you just gave to this butter. Beat that bad boy down until it's kind of almost whitish in color. Right now it's kind of a light yellowish. So now you want to add your egg yolks to here, to this bowl. Add it to your beaten butter, sweetened beaten butter, sweetened beaten butter. Say that one 10 times fast. And you want to do that until the texture of this appears to be smooth. And of course, all that trouble you went to beating it a minute ago until it was white in color, now it's back to being yellow because you added yolk. Go figure. Smooth consistency like that. Now you want to add in about half of your powdered mix here. Approximately. It doesn't have to be perfectly half, but you know, approximately, roughly half. The idea here is that you want to get a good amount of the powdered in there, mixed in with this so it's not going anywhere before you add your next couple of ingredients. There's not a person I've ever met in my life, my mother included, who can make things like this and not make at least a little bit of a mess on the counter. But as long as you put the effort in to keep things neat, it should minimize your cleanup later. Not eliminate it, unfortunately. The only way you can eliminate cleanup later is to have somebody else clean up after you. So you can see it's pretty well mixed. So now into this mixing bowl, this is where you add your 1.5 teaspoons of your vanilla extract. One teaspoon. 1.5 teaspoons. Bet you didn't know we were making vampire cookies. I bet you didn't count on that. I'm just kidding around. Don't get upset. I make corny jokes sometimes. That's who I am. Please don't unsubscribe from my channel. 17 drops of liquid stevia. This is the part I'm always a little funny on because I feel like the drops aren't all equal. So it's like, my drop's too small. Should I be adding 20, 25, 62? But we'll be good sports and just improvise 17 drops. Oops. So you had to squirt it out. Was that 1 drop? Was that 2 drops?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Hopefully it's not over sweet. Once you have the vanilla extract and liquid stevia in there, now we're going to mix in the rest of our powder stuff. Just like before, gently dump and guide it into this bowl. And now we're going to mix this until it has the same consistency that it had prior to adding the stevia and vanilla, which is easier said than done because now it's really clumping up into this guy. It's okay. Now, if you're one of those people who has an electric beater, actually I'm one of those people who has an electric beater, but if you're one of those people who has an electric beater and you do not have a manual option, you want to go as gently as possible on your lowest power setting. You really don't want to send this powder flying all over the place, because the more powder that flies out of here, the less you'll have in your batter, and then the recipe is a bit inconsistent. And that'll affect both the flavor and the yield. Which reminds me of a joke I used to always hear in high school. Your mom is so stupid that one time she asked me what does yield mean, and I said go slower, and she was like, what does yield mean? Don't judge me for my corny jokes. I make no apologies for who I am or how stupid my jokes are. When you're done mixing, you're done beating the crap out of this, it should kind of look like failed oatmeal. Major oatmeal fail. So now we'll put this to the side. Now it's time for the egg whites. According to the recipe, you'll want to beat your egg whites until stiff peaks start to form. Prior to trying this recipe for the first time, I had no idea what the hell that meant. But the funny thing is that the way I found out was I just kept beating the egg whites until all of a sudden I saw something different. I saw some stiff peaks. And if you don't know what that means, it's no reason to be ashamed. I've been making this recipe for about 4 or 5 years. I still don't know what it means. I just kind of beat it until it starts to look different. So now what you want to do is you'll want to fold the egg whites into the dough. Oh, look at that. Stiff peaks. I see it. Okay. So now your mixture, when you're done, it should kind of go from looking like the failed oatmeal experiment that we joked about a minute ago to almost like a failed mud pie experiment. And unless you have some experience in baking, most of you probably have more baking experience than I do, but you'll say, hey, that looks pretty good. So now you want to take your cookie sheet or repurposed baking pan, and then you want to start separating your cookie dough onto the pan. Some of you have cookie spoons, and that's great. Maybe one day I'll remember to buy one. But until then, I'll use my almighty colher de sopa, for those of you who watched my Macho Leone video, and it seems to portion things out rather well. So you should be able to get 10 large cookies out of this. In fact, if you shoot for 10 large cookies, especially if it's your first time making, you'll start to figure out how much each portion should be because you're going for that goal of your 10 large cookies. Do yourself a favor. Don't be as gung-ho as I am right now with how much dough you're scooping into the cookies. Like the idea that they're going to be 10 large makes you want to scoop a lot. You're better off scooping a little less and making sure that you have 10 little piles on there, because it's easier to add more dough to a particular pile that you think is lacking than it is to separate some back out of those just to get another cookie. You may have to trim some off of other ones and kind of improvise. If you end up making 9 larger cookies instead of 10 at the quote-unquote correct side, that's okay. I don't see anything wrong with it. Of course, that might have something to do with the fact that I screwed it up, but that's okay. You may end up with 9 instead of 10. Not the end of the world, kids. And if you want to be a little anal about your cookies, after you separated them to the little piles here, you want to give them a light tap to kind of spread them out a little bit so they're a little more cookie shaped before you start. It's okay. But if not, that's okay too. These are the kind of recipes where you learn things about how your oven works, how dough works. It's all a learning experience. All right, so next you want to stick them in the oven that you've already preheated to 350 degrees and bake them anywhere from like 12 to 15 minutes. Really base it on your oven. Some ovens are a little stronger than others. Some older ovens particularly, sometimes they take a little longer to get them to where you want to be. So you want to use the 15 or maybe go a little longer if you tried it once and you found it's still a little lacking. With my oven, I'm going to go 13 minutes and see what I end up with. 13 was my mother's lucky number, so we'll go with 13. Okay, so while that's baking, what I'm going to do personally is I'm going to prepare my next batch. 12 to 15 minutes should be just enough time for me to get all that stuff together again, because I'm making 2 batches for this party that I'm going to. Alright, let's take a look and see how our cookies are. It's been 13 minutes. Oh yeah, those are some attractive looking cookies. Look at these bad boys. Man, I kind of had a couple of smaller cookies. Basically 1 or 2 smaller cookies and 7 larger cookies. So I got a little lopsided with my division, but it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong way to make them. You can probably make 12 smaller cookies, and the point is they kind of look like this when they're done. And I tell you right now, I gotta go let these cool off for a little bit, but they are delicious. All right, let's separate them out. Oh, I guess I should have added a spatula to the list, huh? Grab a spatula and just kind of put these out on the cooling racks. So for once in my life, I timed it really well, and I literally had just finished making my cookie batter for the next batch when that oven timer went off. I just took a little corner of one and it's cooked perfectly at 13 minutes in my oven. So now I'm gonna go ahead, take my new mixture, add them into here. Alright, so while the second batch is baking, I'm going to go ahead and give this the old taste test. By the way, that batch, 10 cookies that time. So scooped it better. Alright, so since I made an odd number on my first batch, I'm going to go ahead and take the smallest cookie that I made from that batch and use that for our taste test. So the first thing you should know about this is that since we're using almond flour instead of your regular bleached white, rich flour and all that stuff, the consistency of the cookie is not going to be what you're used to for cookies. It's not that crumbly, hard, crusty thing. It's going to be a little spongier, a little soft to the touch, because that's just the nature of cooking with this type of flour. That's part of the trade-off. You know, you lower the amount of carbs, you're going to decrease that traditional cookie crunch to there. These are never going to be crunchy unless maybe you leave them out until they're stale. Each one of these cookies, like if you make it correctly, if you make it to where you separate them into 10 cookies, each one's going to have approximately 1.4 net carbs. So you decide, that's up to you, whether or not you think that's worth it. It's not the prettiest looking cookie. That's not the ugliest either. It's almost like a round brownie in a way. They don't have a very strong aroma, but they give off some aroma. Honestly, it kind of smells like coffee. I can't imagine why. It smells a little bit like coffee with a hint of vanilla, which if you were paying attention to the recipe, you know, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Some coffee, some vanilla, and then other stuff to make it into cookies. I like it with just the slightest hint of a char at the bottom. It's actually not burnt at all. I'll give you a nice close-up here. It's actually just, it's darker than the top a little bit. It's nice. Let me see, kind of break it open for you here. It's kind of, the inside, it's kind of brownie-like also. You know, squishy. That's how it tastes. Yeah. I like how I remembered. And when I say consistent is a little spongy, that's not to suggest that it's dry at all. I mean, it's not a wet cookie, but it's just moist enough. Not dry, but a little soft to the touch. What I like about these cookies too, besides the fact that they're low carb, low calorie, and easy to make, is that the flavor is not overwhelming. Like a lot of cookie recipes, by the time you're done and you try one, they're like overwhelmingly sweet. This is like just sweet enough. Just enough that you know that you're eating a dessert treat, but not so little that it's not enjoyable. That's pretty good. Now bear in mind, it's been cooling like 2 minutes. These actually taste better when they sit a little longer. By the time I get to my friend's house, technically supposed to leave in 4 minutes from now. There's no way I'm gonna be ready in 4 minutes. Such is the rock star life, you're always late. But by the time I get to their home, they'll have stiffened a little bit more. They're still gonna be a little spongy, but a little more dense than what I have right now. But the flavor really gets a chance to kind of permeate the entire cookie. So by the time they taste it, they're gonna be tasting the best version of it, while I'm here having the fresh out of the oven version of it. Yeah, these are pretty good. Makes me wish I had a cup of coffee with a light amount of cream in it to accompany this. It would be perfect. Like if you're having a nice afternoon coffee, a little bit of heavy cream, if you take a bite of this and take a sip of that, yeah, life's pretty good. Definitely. I'm so glad I made these because, one, I like them, and two, the fact that I'm bringing to my friends means I'm going to be tempted to eat all 19 of them. I'll probably eat 1 or 2 there because they're good, unless there's a lot of people there and they scarf them up, and that's perfectly okay because I've already had one Thanksgiving dinner. This is going to be my second, so I think I've consumed enough for the last 2 days. Yeah, that is a good cookie. It just gets better as you go. Yeah, I'm probably going to be in their home in about an hour and a half. This cookie's going to be great by then. There you go. Vanilla latte cookies. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, stalk. I'll see you later.